after 2 years or more, I guess. So I guess, are we doing the book launch first, or? Okay, so I would like to call Rinki ji to start with, and thank you so much for giving this book to us. I'd like to call Shabana ji as well. Yeah. Maithili ji, please. And Shabana ji, please. Thank you. On behalf of Om Books International, it is my pleasure to welcome you all. It's good to be back with the book event among so many people after 2-3 years of nightmarish experience. We are delighted that our first book event after the pandemic happens to be this wonderful book. It has been getting great reviews across media and from readers and steadily climbing the charts. We hope that by the time the evening is over, all of you would have bought the book and got it signed by our esteemed guest, Ms. Shabana Azmi, and the editors Rinki, Bhattacharya and Maithili. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to publish this book. We are immensely grateful to Shabana ji for doing us the honor of releasing this book today, as we are thankful to the editors and contributors for trusting Om Books International with this publication. Thank you, Title Waves, for hosting this memorable evening for us, and I'm sure you will remember this event. And now the mic is to you.
Please, Ajay, please, if you could come and if we just have the formal launch of the book open as well. Please. We have Lalita ji here, we have Gayatri here. I'm not sure if Richa has come. So, like Priyanka, if you could just stand up. We're doing this wonderful book with her. Lalita ji, Gayatri, wonderful collection of Sufi poetry. Translation with her. So, there are quite a few others I think I'm missing who will write to me later. But that's okay. So, this is a very special book, and because when we talk of mothers, we have been conditioned to think of just two binaries. One is mere paas maa hai, and the other is mere do anmol ratan ram ratan. That's the be all and end all of motherhood as we have known it in our culture across the world, I think. But this is a book that takes a very different perspective to it, and looks at it from a number of prisms, some of which I found very, very startling, because I didn't know that there are people who would be willing to write about all of this. I'm sure all mothers feel that way at some point of time. All children feel that way about their mothers often, but to put it out there is a different experience. And this book has everything. And it's such a special thing to have contributors like Kamala Das and Shashi Deshpande and Manu Bhandari and Shabana ji and Syed Akhtar Mirza Saab and Maithili and C.S. Lakshmi and Vaidehi. I could go on, and Deepa. All of them within the covers of one book. That doesn't happen. Please clap. So it's a special book that way. So many of us, so many of the authors here are actually stalwarts of Indian writing in English. So I'll start off with Maithili and Rinki as to the process, and then I'll come one by one. I'll come to the others here. Maithili, Rinki, what was it like when you first thought of the anthology? What was the idea behind talking about motherhood and also calling it the oldest love story. I think that's a terrific title for a book, on motherhood.
Shantanu, I'm so overwhelmed when I'm speechless. So I think I would, honestly, I mean, putting together a book like this with such stalwarts, and I mean, I'm so fortunate to have so many of my authors here. It's been totally, what can I say, a fabulous journey. And we could survive COVID, I think, thanks to this book. The last 2 years, when we were shut up at home and I was scribbling away, writing, editing, collecting manuscripts, saw me through the darkest phase of our life, one of the darkest phases. And I think all of you just must read it. It's a must read. I think it's really a must read book. Thank you so much. Thank you. We'll come back to this.
About calling it a oldest love story.
Yeah, actually, we were just struggling about the title. We had many going back and forth. I and Maithili, Rinki here in Bombay, emails, we had set time to talk, and then WhatsApp messages, frantic things. I've got to talk to this manuscript. Do you have it? Yes, I have it back. Hello, can you hear me now? Yeah. So we had all these frantic back and forth, and then we said, don't worry, I've got everything on record. And then one of the things that I really liked about the book is, as Rinki said, we have stalwarts writing. 5 Sahitya Academy Award winning authors in one book. And then we consciously had translations from different languages. Manu Bhandari, then Vaideki from Kannada, then here she's sitting Urmila Pawar from Marathi, and from Assamese they straight away wrote in English. But then the variety of perspectives we could get together, right from Rajasthan down to Assam, down to Dakshin Karnataka and Kerala. Of course, we tend to think that Kamala Das is still with us, but she's written such a short but very succinct, poignant piece on motherhood, what the whole experience of motherhood, from being a teenage mother to a matriarch who feels hesitant to hug her adult sons in public. Then she takes a back seat in their life. And there's something like Manu Bhandari's wrenching story of what happens to a 12-year-old mother who came as a mother to a very orthodox family. And it's not all, the book is not all sugar and spice, my mom is the best kind of a thing, because both women question their experience of motherhood, and then daughters see their mothers, and daughters and one son. Sai isn't here today, he says he's exhausted from his jury duty in Kerala, so he couldn't make it. But his letter to me, a democratic mother, he gave us permission to excerpt from him. So we have a son speaking about his mother, and we have daughters about their mothers, and seeing them as women, not as just their mother. And then there is a sort of self-exploration. That was really such a learning experience to read them. And Shabana too, she's the star of the book. But you're the National Award-winning actor and a very eloquent person.
In fact, some of the best responses I've had have been on Shabanaji's essay. Everybody's coming back with, I'll read just a line from that a little later to give you, before I hand over the mic to Shabanaji to talk about her experience with her mother. Rinki made a very good point, like in the last couple of years, if this book gave Rinki and Maithili and all the other contributors the thing about somehow going through the pandemic, that sort of thing. For me as an editor, it was even more like that, like I was at an event last week in Kolkata, and I was thinking that these 2-3 books that we have published in the last few months, and which we worked in the worst phase of the pandemic, is what actually kept me sane, kept me looking forward to a day like this probably. So it's if the editors and the authors have actually put that much work and survived this as an editor, as a publisher, we've also sort of gone through this phase only on the strength of books like this. So one of the things about this book, and I'll come to that, is as Maithili said, it is not all sugar and spice and everything's nice sort of thing. And Shashi Deshpande's first essay in this book is, we learn about motherhood, about being mothers from our mothers. And what were the nuggets of wisdom I picked up from my mother? I learned that a mother is like God. I learned that a mother is constantly sacrificing herself for her children. I learned that a mother is one's refuge. I learned that childbirth is painful but joyous. I learned that love springs naturally and spontaneously in you. I learned that a mother can never be unjust or unfair. And was that the reality I saw even as
quite remarkable about her. And the fact that, like I've said in the essay, she was blunt to her point. I mean, she could put you really in trouble, which you will know when you get to read the book.
Experience of the reaction to Fasla was quite in your first film.
No, but for that I have to first say what she said about me, Nandakuruni, then Fasla. Okay, so this mother of mine, this actress whom I admired a great deal, saw my very first film, Ankur. And she was sitting a couple of rows before me. And she turned around, she saw the film, and she just said, Shabana, you're a very good actress, and I'm very proud of you, and this is a very good film. And I sort of sunk into that chair, that all kinds of people are looking around, कि क्या है क्या आखिर ये क्या बोल रही है? Anyway, 2 months later, I took her very confidently to another film that I'd done, which is Fasla. And exactly with the same tenor in a voice, she said, शबानी इतनी बेहुदा फिल्म और तुमने इतना बेहुदा काम किया है कि अगर तुमने मुझे ये फिल्म पहले दिखा दी होती तो मैं तुम्हारी शादी किसी लंगड़े लूले पहले से कर देती, लेकिन फिल्म इंडस्ट्री पे नाजिल नहीं करती. So she was exactly, you take it or leave it, that kind of person. So she was not one of those Nirupa Roy characters from Hindi films, I can tell you.
And also she didn't quite take your tantrums very well. She could put you down on your tantrums. Also, you mentioned in one place about.
I don't know whether I mentioned that in my.
Yes.
You did, because I think you said you were having breakfast, and then your brother Baba.
Oh my God! I've opened up all my secrets in this book. I don't even remember. Oh.
She took the toast from your plate and put it in, and you thought she didn't love you.
No, that's not the real incident, which is very beautiful, is that there was a period when I started becoming very rude because I felt that my mother loved my brother more than me. And so I was behaving very rudely, and so she called me. I was 9, imagine. And she said, what's your problem? So, why are you behaving so rudely? So, I said, because I think you love Baba more than you love me. So she says, see, I'm your mother, but I'm also a human being. You're a very rude and obnoxious girl, and that's why I don't like you. That's why I don't like you. Your brother is a very well-behaved and a very gentle boy, and so obviously I will react to him like that. So imagine if your own mother reacts to you, what will the world do with you if you continue to behave? Let me tell you, from next year onward, I gave up all my rudeness and everything. And then when I tell her, I say, Mom, how could you have the guts to say that to a 9-year-old child? I could have been decimated for life. She said, I didn't even think about it. Because today's parents would say, oh my God, usko inferiority complex ho jayegi. Because she was so steadfast in the love that she had for me and that she had grounded me with, that she could be totally blunt. And so if any of your children are behaving rudely, let me tell you, follow Shaukat carefully.
Shabana has a great line there. It says, her mother told her, it's good you learn early in life that emotional blackmail will never work. Coming from this wonderful reminiscence, I'll come to Deepa. Maithili writes in her introduction, Deepa Gehlot is the dissenting voice. Hers is a rational reputation of essentializing motherhood as something without which a woman is incomplete. Deepa, your take on, and which I found really stunning that, in a culture like ours, somebody could actually put forward a take like that.
I think said that in our culture we deify mothers, and because you have created this aura around motherhood, it becomes imperative for women, especially married women, obviously, who feel that also you have to have a child, otherwise you're incomplete, and what will the neighbors say, and what will the in-laws say, and quite often they may not be prepared for motherhood, and they may not be willing to take on the responsibility, and still it's something that is forced onto them, and the maternal instinct may not be part of their psyche, but they are expected to do it because that's what they're supposed to do. Otherwise, if they don't, then society will say, oh my God, this selfish, wicked woman doesn't want to be a mother. And selfishness is a word described most often for women who don't want to have children, or rather couples who don't want to have children. How can be so selfish? And now more than ever, and I've ended my essay saying, now more than ever, it's foolish to bring children into this world. I mean, you don't know when the child is going out whether it's going to come back, because there are, look at America, school shootings, there's pandemic, there's terrorism, there's war. There's a huge burden on Earth's resources, and do you want to bring a child into this world? And speaking for myself, I think it just so happened that I had a very busy career, and my friends got married before me and had children. And without exception, they would in their weak moments would tell me, "Arey Baba, if I didn't have this kid, I would have, my career would have taken off, and my marriage would have been happier, and I wouldn't have my in-laws on my back all the time." And not a single woman, my friends, I'm not talking about the whole world, were happy with the experience of motherhood. They had to pretend to be happy, and they had to pretend to be good mothers, because again, that was expected of them. But if they could go back and undo, this, at least half of them would choose not to have children. At least from that, I'm judging by what they would tell me. And I said in the earlier Zoom thing, one of my neighbors, who was the one who told me, "Arey, tera kya hoga? Tera to koi nahi hai. You should have had children." And I said, "You have children, and who's here looking after you?" And she said, I feel jealous of you. अब मुझे लगता है कि तू कितनी सुखी है. So I'm being facetious about it, but I gave it a great deal of thought, and I realized that I'm not going to give into social pressure. I'm not going to something which ultimately is going to make me unhappy, And because of that, I think I could live a life more or less of my own choosing. I say more or less because of course other factors come into play, but I think I'm happy, and I don't regret it for a minute that I chose not to have children.
You have a preface in the book, but you haven't spoken about your experience as a daughter or a mother. Why is that? We have had this conversation, but I'd like people here to know so that they don't blame the editor here for not including us.
I'm on the hotline with all your daughters. Remember that. Shantanu, I think it's in the making. Yes, if you have a reprint, which I hope you do very soon, or should slow down, and then in your next reprint, take up mine. Yes?
Yeah. Please buy the book and make the reprint happen.
Yeah.
So that we can include Rinki's essay on
My
mother.
story is ready.
Yeah.
I want to add something to what Deepa said. Nowadays, I see young women, they're agonizing over motherhood. They read so much of child psychology, say, I do this, my God, I'll traumatize my child. And then not just Freud is very long time ago, right? Pop psychology and articles, they're saying you're going to mar your child for life if you do this. So the amount of guilt a woman feels when she is having a child, and if I do this, what will happen to the child? You know, that kind of a fear, if I was in the place, I too would have been like Deepa. I said, I'm going to have a child. I don't know, I'll have to live with guilt all my life if my child didn't turn out well, you know. I mean, I really feel that there is so much of pressure. Some of which is self-taught, and some of which is the media created thing that, you know, mothering, not parenting, it's mothering. It's not so much that both the parents are responsible for a child's emotional and intellectual growth. All the pressure is on the woman to be a good mother, that you make the child. And that's too much of a burden for a woman to take on. She has other interests. That's what Sashi Deshpande writes in her. You know, it's a kind of an overview of motherhood. Not just her personal things, but her observations about what motherhood. I mean, you make motherhood your be all and end all of your life. You'll be sort of destroyed. Hello. Sorry. That's what she said. Motherhood can divide.
It comes alive. If you could talk about it, because it's such a fascinating story at the end of the day.
I mean, I was wondering whether as an editor, whether I should write or not write, you know. Then Rinki said, no, you better go ahead and write. And I've written a smaller piece of this sometime in another version. Then I found that my mother was a 17-year-old studied, she just finished her inter in Mysore. She grew up in Hyderabad, then went to Mysore. And she married this man. My father was 16 years older than her, with 3 stepchildren, voluntarily. Her parents left it to her, they knew the family, and when the Rishta came, they said, why do you want to, it's up to you, because she was their firstborn and very pampered. She used to go to Maharani.
Why the oldest love story? Why?
It is Rinki's idea. We had some working titles, and then I said, what do we do? And all kinds of combinations, they all sounded very convoluted and weird. Then Rinki came up. You talk about it.
Please, Rinki.
No, Rinki is at the credit for the title, and the cover picture goes to Rinki. She is.
I don't remember, it just came spontaneously to me. I mean, can there be any other love story older than mother and child? I don't think so. I seriously don't think whether I love my children, don't love my children, it's immaterial. But I don't think there is any other love story as old as the mother and child. Tell me, am I not right or wrong? Yes? You know, I have been an art critic for many years, and every artist has tried to make a mother and child, especially the male artists. They've always drawn mother and child. So, you know, it's intrinsic in us. And that's, of course, you know, another, maybe there's another story in that, but I don't think there's another modern love story than mother and child. I seriously don't.
And,
Yeah, am I right or not?
and since you're calling it the oldest love story, one of the things that strikes me is that there are just 2 men in this anthology. Would you like to?
Poor fellow. Because although I started bearing a striking resemblance to Mum, she was a much more evolved person than I am. She was wise. I continue to be impetuous. She was very forgiving. I tend to be so, not because I'm compassionate, but because I have such a weak memory that I forget and so forgive. She had one big weakness though, and that was her love for saris. I often used to tease her that if there was a competition, the sari would win over her love for cafe. She had started writing memoirs when Abba was alive. After he passed away, she couldn't bring herself to write a word. After much coaxing and cajoling from Javed, she picked up her pen again and completed Yaad Ki Reh Guzar. It has been translated into Marathi, Gujarati, Hindi, Tamil, Japanese and English. It was selected by 14 universities in the USA for referential reading in the South Asian departments, for recreating the history of those times in a voice that is distinctly female. Amartya Sen was kind enough to write a blurb for its English translation, Kafi and I by Nasreen Rahman. And this is what he said. To say that this is a lovely book would be an understatement. It is an enchanting recollection of the life of a hugely talented and sensitive human being shared with a great poet. They were united not only by love and marriage, but also by an individually assessed joint commitment to social change, artistic creativity, and personal and political ethics. In this excellent translation, you have a lively account of an important part of Indian history, fired by sympathy, inspiration, and imagination, but tempered by the hardship of reality. Excitedly, I rushed to her room to give her the news. Who is Amartya Sen, she asked. I proceeded to tell her that he's a Nobel laureate, a world-famous economic expert. Duly impressed, she said, "तो बहुत बड़े हुए आदमी ना, बड़े आदमी हुए ना." I said, and she clapped her hands in delight. That evening, she came back home, armed with 16 saris that she had bought at one go. 16 saris. I exclaimed, "Mummy, in my life, I have never bought 16 saris at one time." Back came her cocky answer. In your life, Amartya Sen has not praised you either. Till afternoon, she didn't even know who he was. This is... It's very short about me, actually. I am cut from the same cloth as her, but who am I? I would say I'm a woman, an Indian, a wife, an actress, a Muslim, an activist, etc. My being Muslim is only one aspect of my identity. But today it seems as though concerted effort is being made to compress identity into the narrow confines of the religion one was born into, at the absence of all other aspects. This is not the truth about India. India's greatest truth is her composite culture. The Kashmiri Hindu and the Kashmiri Muslim have much more in common with each other because of the Kashmiriya than a Kashmiri Muslim and a Muslim from Tamil Nadu, in spite of them sharing a common religion. To me, my cultural identity is much stronger than my religious identity. I love the Urdu language. I enjoy eating biryani. I revel in wearing a gharara. But I don't read the Quran or offer namaz. So what does it make me? Figure it out. And next time you rush to stereotype a community, remember that a civilized society must not look for homogeneity in the garb of nationalism. My mother taught me that identity must not be a melting pot in which individual identities are submerged. It should be a beautiful mosaic in which each part contributes to a larger whole, different but equal.
Before we have the audience with your question, I'm sure all of you are eager to ask. Sarojji, since you are also here, if there is a little that you could talk about. In that case, I'll open up the floor to the audience. If any one of you has any questions for Meenakshi.
Deepa said a little while ago, there was a stunning chapter by Sita Bhaskar which talked about the absolute horror, the revulsion, the guilt, and a mixture of many things of the kind of son that she produced because of some incidents that happened. And I had somehow had a strange odd feeling that there's probably different variations of this were happening with different mothers in different ways and different intensities, but they're probably far more common than one imagines. So I wonder if there was a problem.
आपने बुक पढ़ा कोई ऐसा विषय जो काफी आपको अच्छा लगा एनी लेसन
सच्चाई को समझने वाली, तो मुझे लगता है ये सब
And ma'am, you have written in this book. Tell us something about the experience writing and what you have written. Tell us something about it. Oh, bye.
पूछ लेना डायरेक्ट यार।